Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Vinny Carriers, and I'm one of the co-founders of WCG Investments. And I'm here with my partner, Matthias Grunwald. Say hello, Matthias.
Hey, everyone.
So, as many of you know, accountability is one of our core values, and that means being transparent every step of the way. So, today's webinar is about keeping you, our investors, our partners, in the loop of one of our key projects, which is the 100 lot park in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So, we're going to walk through the good, the bad, and yes, the ugly, because this is a real deal with real progress, real challenges, and real lessons. And we believe that you deserve to hear all of it. So Matthias has been in the trenches with this deal since day one. So Matthias, how are you feeling today?
Good. I'm really excited about this one because there's a lot of good that happened, a lot of ugly stuff that happened too. And man, did I grow through that process. It's so good. I'm really proud of the progress that we made. And I'm really excited going through all the ugly stuff too, because there's some stuff is really movie worthy to be experienced at that park.
All right, so let's talk about the good. All right, what wins are you most proud of since we closed on the Spartanburg Park?
The biggest one for me really is we paid investor returns since month 3 in full prep out of the gate. So, sometimes, in some deals, you maybe work up to like the full pref preferred return for the investors, or you might have no returns or no preferred return for 6 months. But with Spartanburg, it was so cash flow heavy right away. We could start like month 3 with full prep, and we haven't missed one yet after a year. So I think our 1 year anniversary is coming up in the next 2 weeks, where we close end of July, and at the date of recording, today is July 11th. So almost a year anniversary here, and we haven't missed a distribution. Really proud of that. And we actually have, distribution going out today. Actually, I got a group text this morning. So for the last quarter. So really happy about that. Also, tax deductions or the depreciation we have for that one, for the K1s for our investors, was much higher than expected. It's over $1 per dollar invested. So in other words, if you put $100,000 in, you have over $100,000 of write-offs, which is amazing. Good paper losses, for your tax strategy, which is really good. And what else went well is we basically deep into year 2, almost year 3 on our business plan, and we haven't even gotten, past the year 1 anniversary yet. So we really deep into it, and we staging to refinance very early with this. And there's more details about this later in our conversation, but those are the big wins so far. I feel really good about it.
Sounds really good. Can you talk about the improvements we made to infrastructure or the tenant experience?
Yeah, I think the big ones, oddly enough, like there was a lot of like old school ways that previous owner managed those parks, and just getting online payments implemented was a huge plus for some tenants. Some tenants working like third shift, for example, and they were really, really grateful that we got online payments submitted and implemented, because they didn't have to drive to an office in Greenville, 30 minutes after work, because they were tired, they were working all night, whatever, and didn't have to pay, rent physically anymore, so they can pay rent, online, so to speak, which is, we don't really think about it that much. We think it's normal nowadays, but it isn't, especially mobile home parks. Like many times you take this over, like a mobile home park like this, and it's not really running as a business, so that's a big one. There was a lot of deferred maintenance. We spent over $100,000 on repairs, maintenance, and capex combined in the last 11 months. So that's a lot. So we improved living conditions tremendously. Some homes had major holes in the floor where really like a small child could fall through. You can see the ground from some of the flooring. That was really, really bad. And we knew that when we walked in, because we walked every home during the diligence. So those are upgrades we made. And also got rid of a bunch of bad tenants, which ruins the culture in the parks as well. And more to that later. It's kind of an interesting story as well. But that alone, I had people hugging me because I got rid of some bad tenants that were ruining their lives. So that's a good one too. So it's not only about like paving roads and repairing bridges. Sometimes it's just getting rid of the bad apples in the community, improving the community that way, and just running it as a business and drop the hammer when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. The little things, right? They go a long way.
Totally.
So took over the park about a year ago, right? Can you talk about any early signs that our value add strategy is actually working?
Yeah, totally. So the strategy with this was, it's 100 units, 59 were park-owned homes, which means we're responsible for repair and maintenance on those homes, and everything else was tenant-owned. Strategy is to come in and convert those park-owned homes with rent-to-own contracts to tenant-owned homes. And this is where we actually really excelled. Like, we had a lot of vacancy when we took over on the homes. There were a lot of park-owned homes that were empty, and we sold them really, really fast. We got them to safe and livable conditions, but we didn't paint every wall because somebody would take them over as handyman special, and they're going to paint them anyway and make them to their liking, and sold those off really, really well and quickly. And what actually enabled us here is to get the expense ratio down. The previous owner had an expense ratio about like 76%, which is crazy high. Because there were a lot of older park-owned homes too. Not super old, but older, like 80s, 90s, and stuff like that. Some of the 70s. So they have a lot of smaller issues, right? And if you send the company out all the time, it adds up really quickly. Right now, we operate like in the 30 to 35 expense ratio because all the homes that were owned by us, most of them are sold off. And all the other ones in good shape, that were still rentals. And we not force people to buy their homes. If they're still renting from us, if there's natural turnover in the future because they move across town, across country, then we use the opportunity to use that to turn it over to a tenant on home with a rent-to-own contract. So those various strategies went well. Also, like, streamline the payment process was big, for our tenants, obviously. And then also when we took over, like, income was extremely low considering how many units there were, and we almost doubled it in the 11 months from income-wise after like rent increases and also getting everybody online, get rid of the bad tenants, etc. So those value-add strategies really worked and increased the value tremendously. So yeah, really happy about that result for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So when you buy a commercial asset like a mobile home park, you are impacting the community, right? It could be positive impact, it could be negative impact, right? It depends on how you manage it. But how has the local community or the city responded to the new ownership?
Yes, that's a good story too. So this portfolio is basically 4 parks, right? And 2 of them are in Woodruff, South Carolina. It's still in Spartanburg County. Spartanburg County is a pretty large county. And in Woodruff, they're building a new BMW plant, a battery plant. I knew that because I live here. And my background is in automotive manufacturing. So I know exactly what the big manufacturers are doing. Still very much tied into that community very well. So I know what the next moves are that they're doing. And I was like, this is a phenomenal location to move here. Because mobile home parks are workforce housing most of the time, blue-collar people, so location is great. Like, from one of our parks, you can see the new facility almost. It's that close. One of the main reasons why we made a move on this portfolio. And the city, therefore, is very strict on keeping the city clean. There's a lot of movement, a lot of investments in that town, and BMW is moving in, and they just repaved the entire main road, main street on Woodruff, South Carolina, and therefore they make sure all the trailer parks are clean. And this one, two out of the 4 are in Woodruff, and they weren't when we took over because they were neglected from the previous owner. So right out of the gate, when we took over, we had 10 violations from the city inspector right away. And they said, if you don't fix those in 30 days, we charge each one of them $1,000 a day penalty. So bad, really bad. So, of course, trying to build a relationship with the guy, met the inspector on site, walked through everything. Within 30 days, we got that house cleaned up. We actually told tenants, if you don't get this cleaned up in 30 days, we're going to evict you because of defaulting on the lease, because you're violating our rules and regulations. And everybody cleaned up, sent us pictures. I sent those pictures to the city. And the guy told me personally, you guys did a phenomenal job turning this community around. And they're still driving through it. What I heard from tenants just recently, they're still driving through it once or twice a month just to make sure it stays clean. I hear nothing from the city anymore. So that lack of criticism is really a compliment, so to speak. So really happy about that result. So it was a little stressful in the beginning, obviously, but we get why they did it. We want to make sure it's a clean place, and I'm really proud of the turnaround we did on those communities, how clean they are right now.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're changing the culture of the park, right? Everybody's clean, they take more pride, and in turn, the community is better. You added value. Right. That's awesome.
Yep.
All right, let's get into the bad. All right. So took over the park. Are there any parts of the transition that turned out to be more difficult than you expected?
We knew we have a lot of park-owned homes. We knew we had a lot of park-owned homes that were in disrepair because we walked every single one of them. 59 homes, took us 2 days to walk through them all thoroughly in due diligence. We knew they had issues, and we talked to every tenant we could talk to and asking, do you have any issues here? And most of them were like, no, or there's a small issue here, and so forth. What we didn't expect, and that did go really badly, is that the closing was extended several times because the seller didn't get the mobile home titles on time. And actually, like a day before closing, he sent them to our attorney for review, which is way too late. So it delayed the closing by another month. That was right before 4th of July, like almost the same time of the year last year. And since it was extended, I think he didn't care anymore and did nothing. He broke up communication with his tenants completely. Property management has been instructed, and I heard that from the property manager after I picked up the keys, that they're supposed to turn their phones off. So that they actually completely ghosted their tenants for the last month or two. They do no repairs or nothing. When we took over, there was a flood of issues, like literally speaking, no pun intended, there were a flood of sewage issues, sewer line issues, everything going on. We had 34, I repeat, maintenance requests in the first 3 or 4 days. Where people like, there were poop coming up of their toilets because the sewer line, there's one park has septic, the other ones are all city sewer, but the sewer lines were basically so collapsed that didn't go anywhere. So it was just backing up all the way back to their homes, and that was crazy. We didn't even know where to start. Is how bad it was. Of course, we start with the safety-related items, the sewer line repairs and stuff like that. So we got that done. Again, we expected this repair, but not that much, obviously. So, and then managing the emotions of the tenants, because they were mad as a hornet when we took over, and they didn't even know us yet, and their thought, and I think that made a big difference. Their thought, we already took over like a month or so prior, we actually closed, because the seller told the people like, we're going to sell, we're going to go through a transition, but they never said when the deal was done. And since there was delays, they were actually figuring we already own it, and we just ghosting everybody. But the ghosting happened on the previous owner. When we took over, people were really, really mad. And then the rumors were spreading that we were apartment developers and we're going to plateau everything and kick everybody out. And then everyone was just like scared, pissed off, etc. That was an extremely difficult time to manage. And that, have 100 people that, they're really concerned about, like, if they have tenant on homes, like, we're going to go in my home, is their existence is on the line for the housing, so to speak. So you have to calm everybody down, talk to people. I was out there a lot, talking to tenants and assure them we are mobile home park operators. We want to use that community for a mobile home park. That's our highest and best use for the land. We have no intention to put apartments there. As a matter of fact, we don't like apartments. We want you guys to stay in those mobile home parks. So I know it's kind of a long answer on this, but there's a lot of stuff that went wrong on that front. Also made us stronger how we transition new parks in the future, but more to that later.
Man, it's a lot, and I don't think people realize how hard it is to stabilize a park. And some parks are more challenging than others, right? And it sounds like on this one, you had your hands full. So let me ask you, on a personal level, how do you keep it together? How do you compose yourself? Because it's a lot going on in the first few weeks.
Yes, all hands on deck. It's who not how, right? Like that famous book, Who Not How. Get everybody their hands on deck and work with as a team on this problem together, or just work the problem one at a time. Like, we had to just put a lot of structure behind it, and there's 34 maintenance requests. There's no way, at least the way we were set up at that time, we can manage all those within a day. So we had to go in and just say, like, okay, what are the top 5 right now? And we work those problems first. And then the next top 5 and the next top 5. The problem was there were more coming in after the 34. I think they had about 100 maintenance requests by the end of that month. So there was a lot more coming through, but some of them were not as severe. It's kind of funny, like, how it was also like a wave of maintenance requests. Like, the first initial ones came through because I realized, the actual new owners took over now, and this is their system. Here is the maintenance request. And then we started working on some, and then people realized, they're fixing stuff. Let me put this in the list as well. And we had like over 100 requests in month 1. And after like 2 or 3 months, we had a lot less. I think we only had like maybe 5 for the entire month after we got everything fixed. But how I managed this, like, personally, is just work the problem, going out there, helping the people, showing face, representing, us as the ownership in a good light, and just telling, like, we're here for you. And we communicate also, like, hey, we don't want to just like use the previous owners as a scapegoat, but they really dug a big hole here, and we all get out of this together, and show leadership that way. And it's just like, having a strong wife helps, support, and she's also working with the business and helps, and we can kind of tag team things. We have partners, in this deal, general partners that live here locally, and we all been working phenomenally together to get all this accomplished. So, And I had a team on site already, with my other rentals I have already, and they were phenomenal getting all this done. I couldn't have done it without them. Really proud of the team here.
It's a team sport, and
Totally.
we have a really good team in place. So
yeah,
that goes a long way. So how do you handle tenant turnover and non-paying tenants?
Pretty much the same as we did for any other deal. We give people like a 30-day grace period when we take over, because it might take a couple weeks to get everybody onboarded, and some are not as tech savvy, and then getting them in the system and leases signed and stuff like that might take a while. So we're not going to evict right away, but after month 2, fair game. We drop the hammer. So we knew some people were already on the list of the previous owner that evictions were pending, and also delinquent tenants. And there were some that really heavily stood out. Behavior that was standing out. Rumors were spreading. They were the ones stirring a lot of drama up, and yeah, we just simplified eviction. And those were actually those people that were very vocal about the issues. Actually went to the news as well. So like 2 days after we closed, we were on the news already. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, they were thinking we already took over weeks or months ago. And they said, oh, we can't get a hold of this new ownership team. It's like, we just took over 2 business days ago. Like, seriously. I think the news article came out on Tuesday, and we took ownership Friday night, like when we closed. So, yes. And that person was stealing a lot of things up. And then the news came out several times, knocking on everybody's doors and giving business cards to people if they have a story for them. It was very stressful. But we got those people removed, because the ones that stirring up all the drama were the ones not paying at all. And they were just looking at it as an opportunity not to pay, because they can just say, well, my living conditions are so bad in my home, and this doesn't work. And those living conditions were caused by the tenants themselves. Like, for example, their HVAC system didn't work, but the system was in well working order. The problem was, in the mobile home, if you look at it, we have skirting, right? You can open up the skirting and go underneath the home, where you see the plumbing and also the duct work for the central AC. The central AC ducting was completely destroyed by a pit bull. We found evidence that there were food bowls and water bowls. They were freshly placed underneath there, and they ripped the siding open or the skirting open, and they were just literally like chewing that HVAC system apart. So, or that deducting, so to speak. With that being said, she tried to argue in court that she had a home that was not habitable because the AC and heat didn't work, which, again, by SC South Carolina law, we don't have to provide AC, although it's getting very hot here. Funny law, but it really is true. You have to provide heat, but the system was working properly, but she caused the damage on that HVAC system, and she was fighting that in court, but she lost in court. Once that person was out, that pit bull actually was also chasing our landscaper and bit him several times. I heard stories from other tenants that pit bull was actually biting an illegal immigrant's finger off that was working in the park for the previous owner as well, but since he was illegal, he didn't report it. So that's the stories I heard. And it was also chasing kids. And every time he drove into that park, he never saw any kids walking around. Because that people actually chased me too, personally.
It did.
Thankfully, it didn't bit me. Yeah, it chased me. Like, even when we walked the park the first time, it was a problem. Like, it was scary. So I was a really, like, stud of a pit bull. Like, big,
good
gray,
thing you're a runner, huh?
like this. Oh, yeah, it was bad. It was bad. The previous property manager, when we did the walkthrough, she was having, like, a taser with her the entire time. Like, to make sure you can zap him. Yeah. That's how bad it was. But once we got her evicted, I'm so proud to say this. When you drive in this community right now, there's kids playing. People thanked and hugged me that we got rid of her, because she's stirring a lot of stuff up in the community.
Making a difference.
And she was a non-performing tenant. She didn't pay. And some people they just try to find loopholes to extend their free living, that they can live for free somewhere. And we called her and we got her out. And since then, the community did a 180. So
that's awesome. That has to feel good. And I'm sure
that feels good.
Appreciates that. That's
totally.
Good stuff. Man,
yeah.
It's amazing how you can turn something bad into a positive, right?
Right.
Let's talk about the business plan. Any delays that we have experienced, and what caused them?
Delays, yeah, there's one. We had 3 homes that were tenant-owned homes that were abandoned. One of them was abandoned a couple months after we took over. I think they stopped paying like in February. So we have to go for the abandoned title process, which is tedious. There's a lot of things you have to do. You cannot just call the DMV and say, hey, I need this title because this home sits here. You have to go through the process. The easiest way to do this is like finding the owner somehow, go in the county records and see where it's registered to, and do like a cash or title. Like, hey, your home is here. You stop paying lot rent. Let's make a deal. I'll give you $1,000 for the title so we can move on and we can sell the home again or something. Unfortunately, the owner had a bad motorcycle accident. He's basically incapacitated, so you cannot really speak, do nothing. So he has a caretaker, which he can't really make any action or sign anything on his behalf. So we have to go through like a abandoned title process, we've been advised to do, and that takes a while. That kind of sets us back a little bit on that front. That was unexpected. We have 3 of those, and he owns 2 out of the 3 that way. And one is just like a person just randomly disappears, and the home is actually gutted. They tried to renovate it. I assume they ran out of money and disappeared. But we prepared for the ownership once we take over the titles on those homes. So we're basically going to go in and just basically, I have a partner here in my local market. He does mobile home flipping. So we basically sell the homes to him. He's going to make them really, really nice to keep the curb appeal up in the park, and then sells them to like somebody. They go through our screening process to make sure they have no criminal record, they have no evictions and stuff like that. So we have good tenants in our communities, and basically have brand new, beautiful looking tenant on homes again. So it's kind of like you have short-term pain, but they have long-term gain, so to speak. That was unexpected. We didn't see that coming. I mean, you can't really see that before closing if that's going to happen. But it's a 3 out of 100, so it's 3% of the entire portfolio. Not a big deal, but that sets us back a little bit. And a few of there was a few homes where when we got into it, we had to pay a little more money than expected. There were a little bit of budget overruns on a handful of homes that we had to renovate, because sometimes you don't know until you open up the wall, you open up the flooring, or like rip up the carpet how bad the flooring really is, and they spend a little bit more. But there were homes where we were like, okay, we don't have to do as much, and we can be under budget. So it kind of balances things out a little bit. So overall, like all the homes that were empty when we took over, they all been completely renovated and sold off. Right now, we're really just selling off stuff that's like natural turnover. People moving out or getting evicted, which they are few and far in between. There's not many happening anymore, evictions, because people are paying up pretty well at the moment.
Yeah, so you touched on budget a little bit. Can you touch on any budget overruns that we didn't anticipate early on?
Yeah, the ones that we really had to open up the flooring, that really bad flooring, and then I talk about, like, it's like the what do they call it? Like the mobile home shuffle. When you walk through a mobile home, you're afraid to fall through the floor. Basically, you do like the shuffle. You kind of do your feet like this so you don't fall. You do like the mobile home shuffle when you go through a mobile home. And then you see like, okay, here's a soft spot, but until you rip up that carpet, many of them have carpet, especially the older ones, you don't know how bad it really is. And some of them need like entirely new flooring, because I mean, that was like borderline dangerous. So had to do that. And then maybe some homes you have to spend, $8,000 instead of $5,000. So that was a little bit of a budget overrun there. But then some others, we only had to spend like $1,000 instead of $3,000 or $4,000. So it kind of balances out. A couple of budget overruns there. And of course, like holding costs of the abandoned homes, you don't get lot rents for the 3 abandoned tenant-owned homes. But again, it's only 3% of the entire portfolio. And that's why I like to say the bigger deals are easy to manage than the small ones. If it happens on the 12 unit, that's bad. If it happens on the 100 units, you can absorb it. There's a lot of other people still paying. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the budget and how we managed it. We basically done with all the capex right now, completely done. We just do small upgrades here and there, like regular business. Right now, filling up the last little homes, the abandoned homes, for example, and then we're done. Really, we actually staging the refi already. So we'll see when we can do it, what the timing looks like.
That's good. That feels good. So we just went over the bad, and I got to tell you, some of the bad was pretty bad. So I really appreciate the transparency. But we're gonna kick it up a notch, and let's talk about the ugly. Right. I don't know how I can get a little uglier than that, but let's talk about the ugly. Let's talk about something that went totally sideways on the deal.
Yeah, I mean, the sewer lines were bad in the beginning. It was downright really embarrassing. Also really infuriating to see like how it was left behind, like with sewage coming up in people's homes. And some people couldn't speak English, so they didn't know who to contact either. And they were shy to reach out. And then some people didn't even tell us that issue until like weeks after. And then seeing how they had to live in the beginning, and we didn't know about it because they couldn't communicate or didn't know how to communicate. That was kind of sad. But right now, like we take parks over, we always make sure we have like an English and a Spanish welcome letter, so they know they can reach out in Spanish, no problem. Actually, our virtual property manager, she speaks perfect English and perfect Spanish. So we always give people the ear, and we had that already at that time, but people didn't know. But now we make people. Given that knowledge that we have somewhere English and Spanish speaking on the team, obviously. And yeah, of course, like the furious tenants that we had, because therefore we are ignoring them. That completely went sideways in the beginning. Like communication was really bad. actually didn't help us to sell homes off as intended, because they were like, why should I buy this home if you kick us out anyway and build apartments here? You know, you had to get the rumor mill stopped, because they're like, no. I don't want to build apartments here. We want to hold this like long term. You know, this was neglected, and that's how we actually, you know, make our investors money, and how we make, you know, ourselves money and make a living running this as a business, basically, but also giving like a safe and, you know, nice place to live to everybody. It's how we run that business, right? And this is exactly the reason why the previous owner didn't maintain it well, because he didn't charge nearly enough rent, because he was way on the market rents. And it's kind of sad sometimes how the news is portraying like sometimes greedy landlords, but many times like you have a raising tide that you have to deal with as a business owner and landlord. You know, property tax go up, insurance go up, etc. You know, repair costs are going up. You have to raise the tide with the rents as well, in order to, you know, have that mobile home park be the highest and best use for the land. Because at some point, then if you get outpriced, then an apartment might be the highest and best use for the land. You know, so you kind of, your back is against the wall at some point in that end. So having those communication, that conversation with people was definitely something we didn't see coming, and went really sideways. So I think we got the communication is key in everything in problem solving. I think we got that really resolved, being on boots on the ground and on site and talking with people at all times and answering phone calls, which didn't happen well before we took over either. Like nobody picked up the phone and stuff like that. So yeah, wasn't easy.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. Have we had to deal with any serious tenant issues or safety concerns?
Yeah, the pit bull was the big issue. We were biting people's fingers off, chasing kids. That was bad. Chasing our landscaper. Our landscaper said, like, next time that happens, they're going to shoot the dog. I can kill him. So we had to deal with the landscaper's emotions as well. And he said, I'm not going to mow lawn here again. And I tell everybody I know not to come here. It's dangerous. That dog is outrageous. It's really bad. It was really bad. We had a fighting couple that was destroying the unit because they were fighting every day. And one night, like Sunday night, of course, Sunday night is when things go down in mobile home parks, I feel like. They had a big fight, and apparently they had an emergency and reached out over the main line. And on the weekends, I watch it pretty closely because our team is mostly, you know, like in the weekend and not working at that time, like 10 p.m. on a Sunday. And I see like a message coming through on our phone system, like, this is an emergency, please call me back. And then we called them back, my wife and I, just to see what's going on, if we can help. And then apparently like a person's pregnant wife basically was like tackling the husband through the door and ripped the door frame out and everything. They had no door, and the door was open in the middle of winter. They said, we need a door now. I was like, what happened? Tell me. And then like, yeah, but she tackled me. And I was like, you guys used to, you know, you have to fix this, right? Like I can go out there and fix it. We have it done tomorrow morning, but you have to pay for this. He was like, well, you know, the suspect is in custody right now. You mean your wife? Your baby's mother? You mean the suspect? And it was funny stories. I mean, that's something serious tenant issues right there. And the safety was the pit bull. And they actually had two pit bulls, but the one was kind of like on the, you know, smaller and more friendlier side, but the big one was really bad. And the thing is, like, since this was allowed by the previous owner, there was another owner in the park that let their dogs running around freely, which then every time you drove in that mobile home park, there was like 5 or 6 dogs chasing your car. But since that one dog is gone, none of them are out because they realized what we did to take care of it. The problem was, and maybe the audience thinking this too, Matthias, why don't you just call animal control? Good point. I did that 5 times. They said, oh, it's a pit bull? Well, if he hasn't bitten somebody recently, we have no bandwidth for any large breeds right now. We can't do anything. Like, what do you want me to do? And then they're like, well, try again. Maybe have luck next week if we have some space. And I was like, you know, we have people threatening to kill the dog right now. It's like, well, we can't tell you not to do it, but you need to do what you have to do. It's like, you basically tell me to kill the dog now, to get rid of it. I mean, it's really that how bad it was, like dealing with that situation. It was really, really stressful. Like even the county, the city didn't want to help you on that front. But the best way we got rid of it was just filing an eviction because they didn't pay anyway. Yeah. And the thing was, in the beginning, we didn't even know there was that person. I asked people around, like, where's this dog going to usually? Like, which house it's gravitating to? Because nobody took ownership of the dog. But then, like, my electrician guy went out, the landscaper was like, it's always this unit. And then we asked that person, like, that's not my dog. Okay, where's the kennel coming from? But what dog is that one for? You know, that kennel. And then we kind of circled in, you know, and did like a rules and violations fine we did. And, you know, and then I went to court and she still fought it. But then I had people had like pictures landscaper did pictures while he was in the kennel in front of our home, and we had proof that was her dog. And same situation with the HVAC system. That's the same dog that ripped up the duct work and stuff like that. So yeah, interesting.
So Matthias, it's a lot, right? You're dealing with tenants, you're dealing with upset landscapers. It's a lot. Can you talk to how your leadership experience as a W-2 prepared you for these kind of issues, right? Because I want the viewers to know that we have experienced people and the right people for the role.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, I was running a manufacturing facility in North America. There's 3 of them, actually. One in Detroit, one in Greenville, South Carolina, and one in Mexico. So we were, shipping automotive products to assembly lines to the big manufacturers like BMW, General Motors, Ford, and all those guys. And this is really high stakes because they have a lot of overhead, meaning if you ship late to the assembly line, to shut the line down, they charge you $3,000 a minute penalty. Very high stakes. So really one big supply chain mistake can cripple a company, meaning being in stressful environments is nothing new to me. So we've been in situations, especially with COVID, when supply chain was a major issue, when we had to fly parts across the world daily to keep supply chains running. And we were like on the brink of like getting penalized from customers. Actually, I think the real estate thing is also stressful because you try to serve the community, but also you are able emotionally to shut it off knowing you're doing your best. And that's all you can do. Have peace with that, I think, goes a long way. And you learn that. So you get a little bit of callous on your soul. I always like to say, you get like your resilience that you're building. And I think if you have resilience as a leader, that builds resilience in the team. Because if the leader isn't freaking out, why should I freak out? Right. So I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Back to the property. Anything about the property that turned out worse than expected after the takeover?
Sewer lines. Everybody's like, I only buy city sewer because there's no problems. Let me tell you, there can still be issues. So the sewer lines were really in bad shape. So we had to dig a lot of them up. In one park, they were really bad. And there were like cleanouts were open and kids were throwing toys in it just to be silly. And that got all kinds of funny shoes out there and kids' shoes. And it was just funny. But also, the result wasn't funny. But we had to do a lot of repairs, which contribute to the budget overrun in the beginning. There was some sewer line repairs we didn't expect coming. So we inspected sewer lines, but you're not inspecting 100 lines because it's going to be like, $50,000 plus to inspect all of this. You do spot checks, and the ones we checked are fine, but you talk to the residents too in the walkthroughs, and everything is fine. But then if the previous owner doesn't do anything for 2 months, and then things start to back up and sewer lines collapse and stuff like that, it's an issue. So, and it's a thing like you have city sewer lines, but you still have your home connecting to their lines. So up to a certain point, you're still responsible to it. And those are the ones that failed, So that's where it's really challenging. I think that's a big one. I think that's the main one for me.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
So in leadership, you have to make tough calls, tough decisions. What's the toughest decision you had to make so far on this deal?
Man, it just happened this week. I think the toughest decision.
Okay.
So we had a fire last week, right before the holiday, in one of the homes, and that's one of the homes we sold to somebody, rent to own. Young couple, very nice people, really nice, and they have a little baby too. And I'm so glad to say nothing happened. The fire happened during the day. They were not home, thank God. Neighbor called the fire department. They got it controlled pretty quickly, so it's not a lost case. It's salvageable. The toughest decision to make is really like you're running a business, so you could just say, well, maybe you caused the fire, it's your problem, you're not going to do an insurance case, whatever, kick them out and start over. What I decided to do is like, hey, man, we're dealing with people here. What we're going to do is, you know what? You're going to share the cost with you. My guy did a quote. It's $7,000 to fix it all up. So you guys can move in again with your child. Let's do 50-50. You give me like $1,000 to get started. You pay the rest, like the 50% portion that's left, like $2,500, which is their share. Over the next 2 years, we put it on the ledger. If you agree with this, let's put this on paper, and then go that way. Because I mean, the insurance, we could have done an insurance claim, but the deductible would have almost wiped out the $7,000, and then we would have gotten nothing. You know how insurances are. If you don't have to use them, because they're gonna jack up your policy like unnecessarily anyway, because you had one claim, it's not gonna help. So we just work with the people directly, and that was kind of In hindsight, it wasn't a tough decision, but in the moment, you were kind of in between. Like, you have to serve your investors to keep the expenses low, but also I'm serving as a landlord and also serving the community. It was a tough decision to say, like, hey, let's spend more money to do the right thing. And that was kind of a tough decision because you're standing in between two parties. And I think our investors, if they're watching this, and I hope you guys agree, like, help the family, I think was the right call here, in my opinion.
Yeah, good call. So we just went through the bad and the ugly. And man, it got pretty ugly. Something about a dog biting fingers off. Doesn't get uglier than that. How about we talk about current status and next steps? All right. So in terms of occupancy and cash flow, where do we stand now?
Yeah, occupancy, we had 95%. When we took over, it was about like 81. There was a lot of empty homes. And 95 is really the 3 homes that are left. They're not, they're the abandoned homes, the tenant homes. And there's 2 brand new homes we just infill, we have to rent out. So those are the 5. So at 95%, it's 100 units, easy math, right? So 95 occupy of 100. So cash flow, I'm maybe paying full pref payments to our investors since month 3. So I think the first one went out, when was it? November last year. And since then, every quarter, full pref. And again, this quarter in July, as the time of this recording, we do our next full pref payment. Next rent increase is going to come into effect August 1st, which means it increases cash flow even further. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to do excess cash flow on top of the pref. So investors will be really happy about that. So really happy about the cash flow. This is a really good deal for our investors.
That's awesome. But you know what? It starts with good underwriting, good due diligence. We didn't get here by luck, right?
Correct.
So, yeah. That's awesome. What are the next milestones for the park?
Next milestones, getting those abandoned tenant homes taken over, and then improve the curb appeal on those parks as well. Set the tone for the community. Like I mentioned earlier, the reason why we got 10 violations at the beginning, it was messed up, and it's same if you have like a dirty home and invite somebody in. They probably keep their shoes on because it's dirty anyway, your home. But if you have a clean home, like a clean mobile home park, people are like, "Whoa, this is very clean here. I'll probably take my shoes off. It's that clean." That's the tone we want to set. And it also attracts the right tenants that way. It's kind of like a psychological thing. Well, many operators don't think about, if you keep your parks maintained, you're attracting the right tenants automatically. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Get the occupancy up to 100% in the next couple months. But otherwise, like, all the renovations are done that we wanted to make initially. So it's all done. And again, we are deep into like end of year 2, early year 3 business plan right now. We didn't even cross the 1-year anniversary mark yet. So we're pretty much all done with everything. Okay.
So you mentioned fully stabilized in a couple of months? Few months?
Probably end of the year. End of the year is my goal at the latest. Yeah.
That's not bad.
It's really good.
I like it. Not bad considering that, it took over the property a year ago.
Yes. Yeah. We put a lot of work in. The team did a great job getting all those homes turned. We sold them off really, really quickly. Increased cash flow, increased occupancy. And that was a lot of work. Again, with all those maintenance requests at the beginning, it really strengthened our processes, which helped the other deals we closed after, if that makes sense. Like, it's also my background, automotive manufacturing. We have like, you have to always go through like certification processes, right? Like they call it the IATF 6949 certification, which requires you to do like continuous improvement process, meaning like, okay, what is working, what is not working, and how can you make improvements, and how can you apply that to like, new projects, or in this case, new deals. And I use the same methodology for this too. It's like, okay, this kicked us in the chin really bad, or kicked us in the teeth. How can we prevent that from happening in the next deal? Then we stacking the wins on top of the wins, or the failures on top of the failures, so to speak, and it gets us stronger for the next deal. So, and then all the maintenance requests we had in the beginning, an average operator probably would have been, been set back by it, if that makes sense, and just said, "Oh yeah, I'll be buying on business plan because it was worse than expected." But we didn't play victim. We were like, "Come get us. We got this." We accept the challenge and excel through it.
Yeah, that's good, man. Are we still on track to fulfill the long-term goals that we shared at the beginning of the project?
Yeah, we did. We definitely are. We actually wanted to, and maybe it's a little bit of insider news for everybody, so hopefully our investors are watching. We don't really underwrite refis before year 5, just because we don't know what the capital markets are doing. Nobody knows. Even if somebody says they know, that they don't know. You never know what the interest rate is going to look like. So we don't want to be forced to refi after 2 or 3 years. But we are planning, and I already talked to the bank, to start a refinance early next year, like springtime frame between April and June, to basically get investors' capital back, and then they will stay in the deal and get basically infinite returns. They get all their money back and then some. In the meantime, they got preferred returns, and the IRR will be through the roof because time value of money. They had the money in the deal for a year, got a lot of cash flow in the meantime, and get all their money back and then some because we got to stabilize really, really quickly. And my goal is to have like 2 full market rents by early mid next year. So with that recent increase, we're like almost at market, really close. So really happy about that. So I can't wait until the investors getting a check in the mail, or through the ACHs or whatever, through cash flow portal. So really proud of that.
Doesn't that feel good?
Really good. It does. Serving the community and the investors at the same time, man,
Yeah.
that's so good.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about lessons learned. What lessons did we learn from this deal? And not just that, how are we planning on implementing those lessons learned on future deals?
Yeah, one would think if you're buying 100 units that the seller is sophisticated, but don't believe that myth. So the previous owner wasn't really running it really well. So although you're buying from larger operators, doesn't mean they're doing the job perfectly. So definitely, I don't think we could have avoided some of that, some of the issues that we faced, but maybe a few of them. So lessons learned is like taking over communication early before closing. Ask for permission to the seller to say, can we take our communication to the tenants early just to prepare them? Hey, we're about to take over, and it's going to be, this is how it's going to look like, the landscape of our relationship. Online payments going to be made here for rent manager, etc. It's how it's going to look like, and anticipate the takeover date is this day. At least start the communication early. Unlikely any seller will agree that you can take over like operations early. Very unlikely. But at least the communication from our end can start to residents, because in the meantime you have the rent rolls already, you have the contact information. You could start the communication already to prevent people being upset and left in the dark, and take control of that situation. I think that's what we learned a lot. And we're doing that. We have welcome letters now. We post them. We actually have the seller post the welcome letters for us before we take over. So this is one of those lessons learned that we're taking to all the future deals.
That's good. So in closing, right, what would you want every investor to take away from today's update?
Oh man, WCG is such a resilient team. The resilience that we have with on our team and powering through everything. And this, you cannot buy that. There has to be, you get it through experience and through going through the grind, so to speak. And the deals not made us grow professionally only, but also personally, which is phenomenal too. And although we had major challenges, on paper, we're still ahead on the business plan. I mean, this is a major achievement I'm really proud of. So I want that very clear to the audience to understand, like, just because you're facing adversity doesn't mean it's an excuse to say we're behind on the business plan, and this thing was not easy to manage. I'm proud where it stands right now, but it took a lot of work in the background to get it there where it is right now. And it was phenomenal teamwork. And I couldn't have done it with the amazing WCG team.
Well said, Matthias. Well said. All right. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us. We are very grateful to have investors who appreciate transparency and understand that real estate investing isn't always pretty or smooth, right? Sometimes you may have a dog biting fingers, but we go through that kind of stuff from time to time. But it's powerful when you do it right? It's very powerful when you have the right team in place and everything, executes well. So we'll continue keeping you updated with any regular reports and communication. If you have any questions, feel free to email us directly, and we're here to help and answer any questions you may have. So thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Vinny. Thank you.